session for members of council, but our public and press are still virtual, so we will treat this essentially as a virtual meeting for all intents and purposes. We also want to welcome Mr. Slutz, your first in-person council session. This is a work session. We will go through the committees, but I will say that there is the intention to go into executive session after the finance committee reports this evening. That said, community development.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. I do have one new piece of legislation tonight, and that is a request for a rezoning of the parcel located at Erie Avenue Northwest, lot number 608. This is a rezoning request from B3 General to Light Industrial. Mr. Maley, are you on the call?
Yes, I am, Madam Chairman.
Would you like to give us some more information about this piece of legislation?
Yes, this property is located, like you said, at 1722 Erie Avenue. It's right close to the border up on Massillon on the north side. It's a B3 parcel. They want to basically take 1.6 acres of that in the front along the road and make that into a storage facility, which would be for RVs and for boats. At my impression, that's all they would have up there. We do have somebody representing the owners, Joe Pascarilla, I think, is on the phone, and he has a short, I think, PowerPoint of about 8 slides that he would like to share with the council.
Okay, and it's my understanding, council members, we do have the PowerPoint in front of us tonight, since we will not be able to see it on the meeting, but it will be displayed on the meeting. So I'm sorry, what was his last name, Joe?
Pascarilla.
Okay, would you like to go ahead, sir?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yes, my name is Joe Pascarella. I'm an attorney with Krugliak, Wilkins, Griffiths, and Doherty. My office address is 4775 Munson Street here in Canton, 44735. I'm here on behalf of 1722 First Street Northeast, and its representatives Tim Lutz and Paul Potagil. I believe Tim is on the call as well. Before I just give a brief summary of our PowerPoint, I'd like to again thank the City of Massillon, Gary Fry, and Dave Malley for answering questions that my clients and I have had throughout this entire process. They have been very, very helpful in just being here throughout this process and answering our questions and guiding us through this, following this process. Just briefly, our request pertains to a portion of the property located at 1722. As Dave said, it's 1.6 acres. The request for the rezone is to change from B3 to I1 light industrial. As Dave said, it's a unique property as it's kind of on the boundary line between Perry and the City of Massillon, kind of on the outskirts. It's adjacent to many properties that are located in Perry Township. On the back portion of the property is EFE Services, which is an HVAC and refrigeration company founded and headquartered right here in Massillon. And Tim, Mr. Lutz, who will be speaking soon, operates and manages EFE, and he could speak as to how he really cleanly operates and maintains the property. As Dave said, we intend on utilizing the property for the storage of RVs, boats, trailers, and automobiles. We just want to convert this vacant property to an economical and clean use. We've got some plans here in our PowerPoint presentation of the proposed acreage to be rezoned, a survey of the proposed acreage to be rezoned, the proposed storage plan. It's kind of a layout of what we've done, a proposed landscape plan. That landscape plan has about 69 trees that will be planted, which shields the storage, and it will contain a key code security gate. The plans are for the property to be clean and well lit with very low impact lighting. As well, the traffic impact should be negligible as the rezoned property will solely be used for storage and nothing else. For example, individuals will not be allowed to make repairs on their boats and RVs or stay and loiter on the property. And Tim can speak to this, but on a typical day, multiple employees and customers come and go from the warehouse that is currently situated on the property. Even though the property is currently zoned as B3, This storage use is much more of a low impact use when compared to other currently allowed zoning uses, such as the operation of a convenience store or car wash. There will be provisions in my client's lease agreement that there will abandoned vehicles will not be allowed, and that the vehicles, trailers, and boats will need to be in good working and mechanical condition that are stored there. I've also put on our slide just some graphical renderings of kind of what we envision this to look like. So with the landscaping and with the nice fencing and the low impact lighting and the security cameras, and we've kind of put a few slides there. And finally, with our application was a declaration of a restrictive covenant, which basically would require the rezoned area to be used for storage purposes in perpetuity and to run with the land. And that's enforceable by the City of Massillon as well as the neighboring landowners. And we wanted to just do that to assure both neighboring landowners and the City of Massillon that there wouldn't be a harmful, more impactful industrial use in the future with switching this to an I-1. That's all I have at the moment. And Tim, if you have anything to add on to this, please feel free to do so.
Yes, like Joe said, my name is Tim Lutz. I want to thank everybody for listening to our recommendation here. I've been at this property for 15 years. I am an avid RVer. A piece of property that I own up there, just it kind of made sense to do this. It was what I get along with the neighbors extremely well for the most part, and we wanted to I wanted to help my fellow, we'll say, RVers and some boaters that I know. It is be a very controlled environment, very selective on who goes there, because it's at the end of the day, it's not that big of a piece of property. So Dave Malley's been great to deal with. The city has been wonderful. It's just been a process. And once again, we want to thank everybody for listening to what we're trying to attempt here. And Joe has pretty much said everything that what needs to be done. Once again, thank you, everybody. Hello?
Can you still hear us, council? Hello?
Joe,
This is
can you
Samantha
hear?
Walters. I believe council is muted, it looks like.
Yeah, it
Oh.
does look that way.
Yeah, they do look muted. You're right.
Does somebody want to text Justin and let them know?
I mean, I could even call over.
That would be helpful.
Anybody?
Diane,
Yes.
They're
can
on.
you hear
They're
us?
back.
There we go. They're back.
Okay, we had a question, if we could just have an answer of how many boats and or RVs would we be able to put on this unit?
I think by the count on there, it's going to be less than 60.
Council members, do you have additional questions? Ms. Lippman, go ahead, and then Mr.
Mr. I guess I would ask, is there any view of the property from residents in the surrounding area?
Yes, there is a view. Right now, it is just, we'll say it was an abandoned lot. And that's why the landscaping to be put in. And I did speak with multiple neighbors before the process was even started. And this is to enhance the area because there are some rundown properties in the area. And this would assist in covering some of that up.
And just to supplement that, to what Tim said, yeah, I think that was the plan with the landscape, was just the vast amount of trees to cover this up. 69 trees planned was to to do that, was to cover any view of that and cover neighboring properties that are situated in Perry Township.
Well, that was the essence of my question. You mentioned that Perry Township's border. I see on the survey of proposed acreage to be rezoned, across the street, across First Street is Perry. What about the north and south? Is there a boundary there too, or is this all the east side of the city, all still in the city?
I think it goes in and out. There are portions to the north that are Perry. There are also, I think, maybe one property to the north that is Massillon, but it's very unique as to the way that this property is zoned. It's almost like my client's property is almost in like a bubble, almost kind of like a weird little island as to how it's situated.
Let's say that from my familiarity, kind of picking up where Jim is, it looks like to the south, Jim, that would be all of Massillon, because you're getting to, what is that, Amherst Meadows Nursing Home?
Correct. That's right behind me.
And there's 2 houses, and then Amherst Meadows, and then to the east is Valeside, which would be the apartments. North is Golden Crest Chips, so with the exception of going west across the street, it would be our road. And no one has objected so far that you're aware of?
So there has been objection from one husband and wife couple directly to the south of our property. They have attended both planning commission meetings and have given a pretty strong objection to what we're doing. Their home is situated in Perry Township. Their property is in Perry Township, and I think, 1722's Tim and Paul's property, I think, speaks for itself as to how clean it is and as to how neat it is currently compared to other Perry Township properties on the street. And I think that shows how clean the storage lot will be in the plans for the storage lot. And Tim, if you wanted to speak to that, please feel free.
Yes, I had council. I had everybody attend and look at our property. We even had the previous owner speak that I purchased the property off, and the front lot that we are requesting a rezoning. It used to be a construction lot where not small but very large bulldozers, dump trucks, very large excavating equipment was positioned there. And we have submitted drawings or photos over the years how we have improved the property from, we'll say, like Google Maps, something like that. And you can see the improvements that I have done here over decade.
Council members with questions at this. I will give my verbal for this obviously, or I guess we don't really have to give verbals at this point. I'm comfortable with putting this on the agenda for next week. Obviously, this will have to go 3 full readings and then get tabled for a little bit for the public hearing, but we will get that on the agenda this week if there's no other comments. Moving on, my next piece of legislation that I have pending is the Kmart rezoning. I've just talked to Dave Maley and Diane. We will be scheduling that for a public hearing at 6 p.m. on June 7th of 2021. That'll be before a regular work session. Any comments or questions on this piece of legislation at this point? Sure, there.
Repeat the date again.
June 7th at 6 p.m. prior to the regular meeting. We'll probably be holding it just like this, half virtual, half not, so the public can attend virtually. Any other questions? Next piece of legislation is the Mental Health Cafe inducement grant for $9,000. Any questions or comments on? Any objection if I bring that forward for vote next week? And last piece of legislation I still have pending is the CDBG budget for the 2021 fiscal year. I do know that Ms. Walters has a deadline date, I think, of beginning of May, so she would like us to vote on that next week if there are no. Okay, that's all. Community development.
Councilman Pro Tem,
Yes.
we did not do an administration roll call.
I think we'll be all right.
Okay.
Thank you. Environmental,
Nothing from environmental.
health, welfare, building,
I have nothing.
parks and rec.
Mr. Lewis, I have two pieces of proposed legislation, both to accept donations. Both donations were approved by the Recreation Board on April 21st. I believe Mr. Steve Pedro, the Director of Park and Recreation, is on the phone. Steve, are you there? Mr. Pedro, are you on the phone? Are you able to speak?
I don't see him on the list, Mrs. Creamer.
Oh, okay. Well, he stated he was going to be on the call tonight, so I wanted to give him the opportunity to speak about this. So both donations, the first donation of $2,000 from the Veterans of Foreign Wars of Ohio Charities. Both donations will be used for the Robert Warnstaff Flagpole Memorial Park. The second piece is $600 from local donations. Any questions regarding these? He's on the phone. He said he is muted. I think I am muted. States.
Well, what
Mr.
caller
Peter.
is he?
Let's try caller number 330-880-3525.
All I have is caller 9, 8, 11, 12. I have no idea what number that is. Maybe he's 9.
Try to unmute number 9 and see if that's.
If he thinks he's muted, he can hit *6 on his phone and unmute himself in the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Lombardi.
Mr. Pedro,
Is it okay to speak now, folks?
Yes.
Okay, as Mrs. Creamer stated there, we received a couple donations. This one for $2,000 from the VFW for our memorial flagpole that we're putting up for Mr. Warnstaff, our fallen co-worker from 2 years ago. And we just talked to the VFW about being involved in that ceremony, and the next thing you know, they gave us a donation for it. I'll be glad to answer any other questions if you have them.
Does anyone have any questions? Mr. Pedro? I do not have any, Steve. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I plan on, oh my gosh. To put on the agenda.
We're not used to this.
I will sign it and pass it on. Thanks so much. That's all I have, Mr. Lewis. Right, exactly. Thank you.
Well, don't feel bad. I had to go remember to get the folders.
All right, police and fire. Police and fire.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. I do have one piece of new legislation this evening. It is to prepare an ordinance to purchase a 2022 Medics Type 1 ambulance. Is Matt Heck on the line, Chief Heck on the line, that he might be able to address this request for legislation?
Yes, I'm on the line.
Thank you. Would you indicate what the terms of this purchase is, what they are, as well as you've got some additional information attached to this request. Would you review that, please?
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Littman. As most of you are probably aware, several years ago, when we started the EMS transport, we put in a process to set aside funds from the EMS revenue to purchase ambulances on a replacement schedule. And we've done that on a 2-year basis. And we've come around to another 2-year cycle, and it's time to purchase another one. If you refer to the Penn Care document, that is the kind of the executive summary of the ambulance that we would like to purchase. It is similar to what we have purchased the last 3 or 4 years as far as the additional ambulances. The sales price there, 174,000 is down there. That is a 0% down, or I'm sorry, $0 down. The balance of that will be due 30 days after delivery of the ambulance. That price is from the State of Ohio Procurement Plan, otherwise known as state purchasing. Again, it's the same ambulance with a couple of different changes that we have done with this ambulance. For example, we went back to a gas engine versus a diesel. We can trying to get away from the DEF or the diesel exhaust fluid and some of the issues we've had with those. But again, it's just part of the process, the procedure that we've had established for several years, and it's time to purchase another ambulance to keep the fleet as effective and efficient as possible going forward. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys may have.
Thank you. I do have a couple of questions myself, and then I'll go to committee and as well as council. How many ambulances do we currently have in our fleet?
Currently, we have 5. 4 what we call frontline or in service, and then we have 1 reserve ambulance that's utilized when we have an ambulance that's out for repair or maintenance that we can float in and keep 4 ambulances running.
Do you feel that the 4 front ambulances that we have are sufficient for the needs of the fire department and the community?
I would say 98% of the time that is correct. Every once in a while, we do run in with a 5th run or even a 6th run. Mutual aid will cover those calls. But for the vast majority of the time, 4 ambulances will do what we need it to do at this point in time. The other part of that is the crews and the personnel on duty. We only have the number to run 4 ambulances.
You also indicate on the request that the build time often exceeds 3 months from the time the order is placed. When do you expect, if approved, when do you expect to place this order?
If I have my procedure down right, being relatively new, if it is approved, I believe we'd have to go to Board of Control. Once we go through Board of Control, then we would submit the purchase. Obviously, we've got the spec and the quote in place, ready to go. And it would just be a phone call to get that process going. After that, once they get the okay to do or go forward, you're probably looking at 90 to 120 days for delivery. So if we would get this in place by end of May, you're looking probably delivery of October.
Thank you, Chief. Committee members, are there any questions or concerns? Mr. Lombardi?
Thank you, Mrs. Littman. Chief, can you tell me, is this going to be replacing an ambulance that's currently in service? Are we rotating one out, or are we just putting in an additional unit?
This will rotate the 2013 ambulance out. One of the things that we have done to kind of keep the cost down on this one is we have not included the purchase of a cot and load system. So we will move the cot and load system from the 2013 into the new ambulance. And then the 2013, what we've done is sold those in the past and utilized that revenue for other things. But that is the plan. We would still maintain the 5 ambulances. The 2015 ambulance would move into a reserve position.
No, I don't at this time. Thank you.
Piggyback on this, because we do have a complimentary piece in finance. You might have mentioned this, but this is all being funded from your EMS capital fund, which is funded through, basically your runs that you make with your ambulance, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
All right, thank you.
I believe there was an ordinance placed years ago that sets a certain percentage, I think it was 10%, that placed into an EMS capital fund. The purpose of that fund is to purchase ambulances.
Microphone.
Thank you, Chief. I'm fine with putting this on the agenda for next meeting. Do I have any verbals from the committee members as well?
We're not giving verbals, are we? We're just doing,
Oh, well, I kind of like the idea of getting a verbal, and then I'm happy to pass the paper.
I'll be happy to sign it.
Thank you so much.
I will be happy to sign it also.
Thank you, Mr. Ferret. I do have two other pieces of legislation that have been submitted over the last few work sessions and meetings. At this point, I do not feel comfortable in bringing those forward onto the agenda. As I had stated before, I know that this restructuring is something that, according to Chief of Police, that it is an experimental restructuring. We are not really sure if this is the exact restructuring that we actually should have. So at this point, I'm not going to agree to put this on the agenda. Not sure how my other committee members feel.
I would like to see it advance because it's really not experimental. There are other communities already putting this in play. See, I think it would be beneficial to our police department and our city for that to go forward.
Mr. Barrett?
I'd rather discuss it as a committee first.
At this point, I will not be signing it either. Won't be discussing it further.
Mrs. Littman?
Yes.
Is there a reason, since two of us would like to have a discussion, that you're going to tell us we're not going to have any further discussion?
Well, I'm just not going to sign the legislation. So if there's others that would like to bring that forward, they're welcome to do so.
Okay, I guess we had a committee meeting scheduled for this and you canceled it. And Mr. Thurett and myself would both like to still have that discussion.
Okay, well then we can certainly schedule another committee meeting if that's something
I
the
would
two of them
appreciate
would like
that.
to do.
I would appreciate that.
When would you like to have that?
At your convenience. You're the chair of our committee. Go ahead and schedule it when it's appropriate.
Well, I would say perhaps before our next committee,
Our next work session,
our next work session.
that's fine with me.
And what time is appropriate? 5:30 is fine for me if you need that much time for discussion.
I'd say 6 o'clock
6
would be
o'clock?
probably.
Okay. 6 o'clock. Let's see, do I have a date? Next work session be
May 10th.
committee meeting for police and fire will be held May 10th, 6 o'clock. Further discussion.
Thank you.
You say 6 o'clock or 5:30?
6 o'clock, 6 o'clock.
Thank you.
I don't have anything further in police and fire then.
Public utilities?
Nothing from public utilities, Mr. Lewis.
Rules and courts?
Nothing for rules and courts tonight.
Highways?
I don't have anything definite, but I would like to bring up once again, question of some of the streets in the downtown area. Several of the businesses and some citizens that have asked me about being able to close off some streets a couple nights a week, especially for the weekends and evenings, to facilitate their able to have additional activities in the particular Diamond Court and Postal, the south side of the Lincoln Way. There's been some mention also of the north side, but those businesses over there wouldn't necessarily, there's nothing adjacent to the alleys to this point. By understanding, the city can grant a traffic change like that at any point in time. So still, I like to keep this moving. I like to keep this on the burner. So if something's done, or the weather's breaking, so sooner we get something definitive for the folks downtown, the better off they think they'll be.
Mr. Ferret,
Say, I believe Mr. Maley's on the line. He may be able to comment. I know he's been.
Mr. Ferret, I think we did have a brief discussion. I know Mr. Bartos and I are planning on meeting next week with regards, or I'm sorry, this week, with regards to some of the lease activity with the Hideaway and Sangria and possibly Bender's. The other issue that you brought to my attention with regards to the Diamond Court, and with regards to Diamond Court, the property there, we were looking at. Can everybody hear me? I'm getting a lot of feedback.
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. The property there, we did determine, and we are instituting some changes there with regards to the food trucks, because we did have an issue with food trucks. And we are planning on shutting down a portion of Postal, which is on the southern side of Diamond Court. A small section that it's kind of hard to explain, but it would go right at Diamond Court, the intersection of Diamond Court, and then go back to where there's a little cove for parking for some of the apartments are, to that section right there. So when we do have food trucks, we do anticipate Thursday nights possibly having food trucks. I did talk to Matt Heck at Sangria. He's planning on having one this Thursday. That particular section of road was a one-way heading south. We opened it up to both directional traffic. We've already put up, I think, the second stop sign. One of the stop signs is already up. The other one, I think, is going up tomorrow. We've already placed signage one way when you come up that road, heading towards for Diamond Court to go west. So our anticipated, we anticipate to have that blocked. We want to see how that functions. We think it's going to work. Matt thinks it's going to work. And at this point, that's the first step. Second point, at some time down the road, we may be looking at Diamond Court. But I don't think it would work to close the whole Diamond Court down from Erie to First. There's just too many issues associated with that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Maley. That's a lot of progress. I'm glad. Thank you so much for your efforts there.
You're welcome.
Mr. Lewis.
I just wanted to thank you for that, and obviously I would hope that this coincides with what else we discussed. The lease agreements, everything that we've been discussing, get this ball rolling. I know the company's waiting to be able to see this.
Mr. Arcade.
Thank you, Mr. Theret. In our packets here on our desk, since it's been a while since we've been in chambers, there are several, at least I have several letters of correspondence from constituents. One is from about 6 months ago from some residents on Bird Avenue. I guess I'd like to see if the Safety Service Director is on the line and if she could answer a couple questions I have regarding Bird.
That was the speeding issues?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Barb.
Hello.
Is there any, we've talked about this several times over the last year or so. Is there any thing that can be done, whether it's the electronic signage that we recently purchased or some traffic enforcement along Bird Avenue? I'm still getting the same concerns from the residents up there. I guess I'm just asking if there's any plans or anything on your radar to help those folks address the issue.
Well, as you know, we did put the sign up for the curb there, put the speed limit there as far as that to be the electronic flashing for there. As far as the actual speed there, you know, we do keep a report of every street that we do the speed analysis on. So I can pull that report and send that to you, and you can present that then as well to the persons who have the concerns with that. I don't have it in front of me right now. I am at the office, but I don't have it in front of me right now. But I can get that to you tomorrow.
If it's the same report from March of 2020, I do have that. I guess, do we have any of the electronic speed limit signs that are not, have they all been placed? I think 7 were purchased. Do you know if all 7 are out and about?
Yes, they are.
I would think that maybe council might want to look at doing another appropriation to purchase more of those signs to get throughout the city for streets exactly like this.
Something that we could do at this point is we could do another speed analysis if it has been a year, Mr. Hurricane.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Lewis.
You know, coinciding with that, you know, the speed bumps, I mean, that's another option, right? I mean, we do that as well instead of a sign. Removable ones that during the summer months can go there to slow down traffic, and then obviously in the winter months, you pick them up.
Yes,
So
we
plows
okayed,
don't hit 'em.
we okayed that in that legislation.
Exactly. That might be I mean, for residential, having the sign might not be as beneficial, but putting a raised piece of rubber out there definitely get the job, I would assume, help get that job done.
I just want to piggyback on what Mr. Lewis said. I thought we had discussed that at one point, especially particularly for Bird, because from what I understand, the one offender who is a constant offender and a very high-speed offender is, you know, he's going to take the speed sign as a challenge. Where if we use a speed bump in that area, let him challenge that, then he's got some car repair. So, you know, so I believe that's what we had discussed at one point, was to put in speed bumps up there. I didn't hear that we had bought them.
Thank you, Mr. Lombardi. I would defer that to the director. I don't recall whether or not those were purchased or not, if that was included in that speed bumps.
I would have to double check the legislation request or the appropriation that was made. But again, I know it was probably discussed through council. I know, speaking with the engineers in regards to that, there were concerns about those with ongoing maintenance and so forth, and basically their effectiveness as well. So probably with those, what would be best would just to do some additional research at this point on those. And then I can make a presentation to you on those.
Okay, so what I understood is we don't have any, but we may be able to get some.
Right, I can do some research to get into them, but we do not have any. No, no.
Mr. Thayer, if it's okay with, I'd like to request that information and potential presentation on the last work session of May.
I agree. Let's see if we can't get that together. I know we've done some research on it already as council, and I believe the director has some also. So we'd like to see if I can get that together with her and get back to council with some numbers. Ms. Libet.
Thank you, Mr. Thayer. I'll also say that there are other areas in the city, and I'll specifically, of course, speak to the 6th Ward, where even on Lincoln Way, it ends up to be a bit of a raceway. Also, some of our neighborhoods, Mayflower, Lanedale, I get complaints constantly about speeders in that area. And I know we've been able to put signs there on a temporary basis, but if there's something that can be done on a more permanent basis, especially in the neighborhoods, I think that assessment would definitely be worthwhile.
Anyone else on that subject? That's all I have.
Thank you. That brings us to finance. The first piece we have is a proposed legislation to appropriate $25,000 from the Parks and Rec Capital Fund. This is to replace or do some improvement for the basketball court resurfacing project. This is something that the Parks and Rec Board does have to do every couple of years to keep the basketball court at the Recreation Center in good working condition. Anyone that has visited the rec center even now will see that it gets regular use not only from the patrons, but also from volleyball tournaments, basketball tournaments, and the hot new sport of the century, pickleball. So we want to make sure we keep that up to date. Are there any questions or discussion this evening?
Mr. Lewis, these basketball areas, I did speak with Mr. Pedro over the weekend. They were at outside parks.
Oh, these ones are at outside parks.
Yes, they were not at.
Mr. Pedro, can you speak? I'm sorry, I was totally misguided.
There are 4 parks, I believe, basketball resurfacing. This is asking.
Thank you, Ms. Littman, for catching that. Creamer?
Hopefully, Mr. Pedro is on the line and he can speak to this. They did resurface, I believe, 3 parks last year, and this is going to finish off the remaining basketball courts in the parks.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me? Okay, we're going to do 6 more courts this year, and this will finish all of our outdoor courts. We did we did some last year. We did 1 2 years ago, and then, as you stated, Mr. Lewis, we do need to do this about every 6 to 8 years, probably. The indoor basketball court will be coming up maybe this year, but more than likely next year.
What was that last statement that you said? I couldn't quite hear you.
We may do the rec center court this year or next year. That's about an every 5-year process for sure on the indoor court at the recreation center.
I wasn't completely off base. I knew we were due. Anybody else have?
I wasn't going to tell you were wrong.
Anybody else have questions? These are, as Ms. Lippincott, thank you, outdoor courses. All right, I did put my signature on for the agenda. Next piece we have is please appropriate $174,193 for the purchase of an ambulance. This was discussed in police and fire. Any further discussion? We will let this go along with fire's legislation. This next piece is please prepare legislation to appropriate from the unappropriated balance of the Veterans Memorial Park Fund. This is to pay invoices for repair and maintenance of the Veterans Memorial Park. In case someone is not aware, the Veterans Memorial Park is located right outside of this building, the south of Duncan Plaza. Questions or discussion? I'll be signing it for the agenda. Last piece I have tonight is please prepare an ordinance to appropriate from the unappropriated balance of the summer concert fund $17,000 to allow for timely payment of bands and related expenses. This fund is a donated fund that is donated to the city and kept going. Questions or discussion on this? That is all I have for finance this evening. We do have executive session that I wanted to go into. I know there's been some talk about how to handle this executive session. This evening, I believe the executive session was one that was requested by the law department. The law department is present.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
this is the mayor. I had an update for all of you before we go into executive session.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to clarify, we did some extra work on the legislation that was House Bill, let me see, 110, that we brought to you last Monday evening for you to pass the resolution. Can you all hear me? Okay, great. Okay. I wanted to give you the timeline on that because I know that there were some questions and I believe a council member was on the radio. I want you to know the dates of how things happened and where we are today with that House Bill 110. On April 13th at midnight, or approximately around midnight, is when they inserted the language that we talked about last Monday. That was the 13th of April. The 16th, on Wednesday, let me give you that date. I just want to be accurate on my dates here. Let's see. On Wednesday, the health department got a hint that something was wrong. Something was going on, and they set up a meeting with all the health commissioners in the state of Ohio for Friday, the 16th. So this happened around approximately midnight on the 13th. On the 14th, they got a hint of what was going on. And on the 16th is when all the health commissioners met with the AOHC, and that's the health commissioners for Ohio. Then on the 19th, I want to thank council for passing that resolution unanimously because things at the state happen really sometimes expeditiously, as this happened. And because you passed the resolution, we were able to get it down to the state. And they they took out the language, they deleted that language that we presented last Monday, but they inserted new language, and the new language was passed on the 21st. So I wanted to make council aware of the new language because we still have a lot of work to do. The bill now requires each city with a population below 50,000 served by a city health district to complete a study evaluating the efficiency and effectiveness of merging with the general health district. So although we had that language eliminated, we still have additional language now that we need to deal with. This now is going on to the Senate. And we'll be talking, we already reached out and spoke with our senator, but it would help if council can call our legislators and let them know how we feel about this, because our health department is extremely essential to our residents here in the city, as you all know. So thank you for letting me give you that update.
All right, thank you. And Madam Mayor, I just want to add one other thing, and this is just a little bit of business. Is, this evening coming in, we don't all have access to the building, and we would appreciate being able to get a key fob or something for all council members so that we can access our offices. I don't know if that is something we can organize through your office or not, but I think it's important that as elected officials, we can access our office. Wanted to kind of put that out there real quick.
Thank you.
Any other business to discuss?
Before we go into executive session, council members, since we haven't done this in a million years, we need to be signing the legislation pieces, not that front cover. Or sign the front cover page. Not the pieces of legislation. Sign the pieces of legislation and date them.
Yeah, each separate piece of legislation needs signed and dated, so we're out of practice. Also, if you are the chair of the committee, you will end up signing the legislation twice, once for emergency language and once to put on the agenda. All right. With that said, as I was saying, since this executive session was brought to us by the law department, and they just want to update us on potential litigation, my thought process was that we would just invite the members of council and the law department, since they are the main person that needs to just update us. Does anyone have an issue with that being our? Well, and I always include you, Miss Claudette Eisenach.
Mr. Lewis, Barb and I would like to be in on that as well. We are very close to this as well.
Okay, and
Yes,
well, I
okay.
guess that opens up a discussion before we do that. My opinion, and this is not, and we can try to make it happen tonight. There was no forewarning, but this is just my opinion, and other members of council can chime in. We obviously know that sometimes technology can be challenging, and that's the reason we're trying to at least get members of council back into chambers. One of the most challenging parts is that if we have an executive session, we have to do a breakout. That can sometimes cause extra steps that has caused us to not be able to have an executive session we wanted. So tonight, I have no problem inviting members of the administration into it, and we can try to do the breakout, but I will put the caveat that if we experience technical difficulties trying to do the breakout, we will not do the breakout. We will hold the executive session with only those who are present. And I would recommend, and members of council, you speak, future executive sessions, if you want to speak to council on an issue and it requires executive session, physically be present so we can avoid the complications of technology. So without the breakout session, with those who are present, all we have to do is mute, and we're in executive session. Am I being too severe in that thought process, Mr. Henke?
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. I would agree to that. I think that's a good idea.
Mr. Lombardi?
I would think that would be fair to ask that. I mean, we're having an executive session. We should probably be face to face anyways, as much as possible.
President Eisnick, do you have any opinion? All right, well, with that said, then we will still, because there was no forewarning, we did not anticipate having to have this conversation. We will try to do the breakout session so we can make sure the administration is included. So,
Mr. Lewis?
yes, Mr. Mealy.
Yeah, is there a way I could be a part of that too? Because I'm involved in this too.
As long as you have a name on the screen and Diane can find you.
I have a name on the screen.
Mr. Lewis, can I just ask who all would be participating in this, just to make it easy for Diane?
I guess we'd be looking for Mealy, Sylvester, and
What about Mr. Bartos? He's also on the screen.
Well, if we're doing a breakout, we can include Mr. Bartos.
Okay. All right, let's help Diane get that set up.
Will momentarily. The law department has a specific script that they would like us to say to make sure we cover our bases, and Mr. Richard has, I believe, went to retrieve that. In accordance with Division G3 of Section 121.22 of the ORC, I move that we enter into executive session to include all members of council, the president of council, the clerk of council, the mayor, the director of public service and safety, the economic development director, Dave Maley, the law director, chief counsel, Bill Bartos. And this is for the purpose of conferencing with the law director and chief counsel to discuss pending court action involving the city of Massillon. Do I have a second? Mr. Thayer. Roll call.
Kramer,
Yes.
Gregg,
Yes.
King, Lewis,
Yes.
Littman,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Slutes,
Yes.
Starrett,
Yes.
and Barrett.
Yes.
9 yes to exit into executive session.
Assistant is enabled.
Testing, testing. We're back live.
All right, well then, now that we are back live, I make a motion that we exit executive session. Ms. Barrett? All right. Now that we are back in, we are at the point of the meeting where we can open this up for public comment. If there's
Don't we
any-
have to vote on that? Exit.
Yeah. Yes, sorry, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Greg,
Yes.
Hernkane,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes?
Littman,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Slutes,
Yes.
Starrett,
Yes.
Barrett,
Yes.
and Creamer.
Yes.
9 yes to exit executive session.
Lombardi?
There's nobody else on except for us and Josh McClay, so there are no public.
We will let the record show that I am requesting that there is anybody from the public that would like to speak. Now is their opportunity to do so. Hearing none and seeing none, we are done.